it's too loud. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Bacon. I'm your new interim rector. This is my 7th day on the job, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. This discernment of getting here has been 4 months in process. It was not such an easy thing for my wife and me to just stop our work in Birmingham, Alabama, where I was doing an interim rectorship there. In the 10th of January, I got an email from your bishop saying, "Aren't you about ready to leave Birmingham? I need you here in New Orleans." And I said, "My goodness, that's a little early." I refer to people like your bishop when they call from out of the blue and say, "I have something for you to do that you have not guessed, anticipated you should do." I call them my Gabriels, because Gabriel came and announced to Mary that she was strangely spiritually pregnant. And that's what your bishop told me, that I was strangely spiritual pregnant with an assignment to come to New Orleans. Nevertheless, Hope and I, you'll meet Hope in just a minute. Well, not a minute, in about 15 minutes. We entered this very emotional discernment through the dramatic feast days of the Episcopal Church. I mean, we went through Lent, and then Good Friday, and then Easter, and then Pentecost, and then Trinity Sunday. And now we are here to meet one another and to engage in ministry with one another after all that drama on the first of several Sundays in which the gospel lesson tells us about Jesus calling his disciples together. So I love it. We're here as disciples of Jesus to learn what Jesus did with his disciples when they first got going together. 3 things happened in this lesson. He called Matthew, and the first thing they did was go have a dinner party. Now, you are going to learn from me that I think that Jesus is a dinner party giver. I know you people from New Orleans are going to welcome that word about Jesus, that he loves to give parties. And we'll unpack that as we go. But the first thing Jesus did was to say, let's have a party. We'll talk about that next Sunday. Second thing is, he got criticized by the religious establishment. Ooh, Jesus loved to get criticism from the religious establishment because it was an opportunity for him to get clear about what he was about. Their critique of Jesus was that he was, hey, my grandson's waving to me, that he was having people at the dinner party who were tax collectors and sinners. In other passages, it said, with prostitutes and wine bibbers. Jesus loved these dinner parties because they were a symbol of the kingdom of God and its radical inclusion, where everybody had equal access to all the food, all the seats, no hierarchical seating, no with the men here and the women there and the and the and the. Everybody was together. And that the religious authorities didn't like that. And so Jesus gave them a mantra. And that's what I'm going to preach about today. He gave them this mantra. He said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Y'all go learn what that means. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a second. The third thing Jesus did after he called Matthew, threw a party, irritated the religious authorities, and gave them his mantra. And then he healed. He embodied this mantra of I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I am a science-friendly preacher. Brother Albert Einstein, whom I call Saint Albert Einstein, has told us that everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy. Smiles, loves, upsets, they have vibrations to them. One time my grandson came up to me and he said, Bapu, I like your vibes. Everything has vibes to it, has energy to it. And here, this woman who had to have a hemorrhage for 12 years, she knew that if she could touch the hem of this man's garment, she would feel his energy and it would make her well. She did it, and it happened. Jesus went to another religious authority. He wasn't caring whether or not you're a religious authority or not. Touched the little girl, she woke up. So those are the three things. But now let's go deep into this business of mantra. Mantras are hugely important, and I would not be able to preach about mantras, the mantra between you and me, if it were not for a friend of mine, Greg Ellison, who is the director of pastoral care at Emory University, my alma mater. And he says that mantras help people see what is God's wisdom and not the world's wisdom. Now, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about mantras. My mother's favorite mantra was, son, this too will pass. I did not know at that point that she was a practicing Buddhist, but that is the case. My dad's favorite mantra was, son, as a person thinks, that person will do, connecting your consciousness with your behavior. Now, my brother and I have fun with another mantra that our daddy said over and over again. Oh, our father was so chintzy. He said, sons, you take that nickel and squeeze it till the buffalo squeals. So whenever I see a penny on the asphalt, I pick it up and say, hey, Dad, thanks for checking in. I went into Dr. John Robertson's office the other day. For those of you who don't know, Dr. John's sitting here on the front row as the director of our Center for Counseling. And she loves mantras. And she has a billion of them framed and up on our walls. And I asked her to send me an email with a list of her mantras. Here's a taste. Thomas Edison, I did not fail. I found 10,000 ways it won't work. Another one. We do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. Love that one. Another. Don't believe everything you think. Got it? Edison again. When you've exhausted all possibilities, remember this. You haven't. Another. Don't believe everything I think. Desmond Tutu. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. Another. Happiness is a direction, not a destination. Yeah. Another. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. Like my mother said, another one, this too shall pass. And then finally, let light shine out of darkness. My friend Greg Ellison said, mantras announce to yourself and to others and to the world that you have found how to see what God's wisdom is, not the world's wisdom. So, he asks, what mantra is sounding itself when you're not with yourself? And what mantra is sounding itself when you are your true self? What is it that you know at your center? What mantra do you say to yourself that reminds you of your true self, where God lives inside you? That reminds you who you truly are at your best? What toxic mantras do you hear from your false self, or in Greg's language, when you are not with yourself? I have a lot of mantras, and I think everybody here does. After the 7:45 service, a couple greeted me at the door, and he told me his mantra, which I'll not repeat. And his wife said, in other words, he's stubborn. Nevertheless, every moment of stillness, every contemplative moment that you have is a time to sort out your mantras and become aligned with your healthiest mantra. Lori Lavelle fed back to me one of my own favorite mantras, which was a mantra of Charles Yeager. She had listened to enough of my sermons and presentations before I came and was hired, because, well, we won't say what her motivation was, but probably it had to do with whether or not she was going to welcome me or not. Anyway, she came Thursday and presented me with this most amazing thing that now is hanging in my office. Y'all come by anytime and see my office. It is a picture of Charles Yeager when he was visiting St. Paul's. You all may or may not remember that Charles Yeager in 1947 was the first person to break through the sound barrier. And he said the following: the cockpit shakes the hardest just before you break through the sound barrier. My mentor, Rabbi Ed Friedman, said that over and over and over again, talking about how leaders, they don't back off when the cockpit is shaking. They move on through. He said so many times, just before you break through the sound barrier, the cockpit shakes the most. Keep going. Maybe my favorite mantra comes from this past Lent. It's the best Lent I've ever had, I think. In order to set up this mantra, I need to direct your attention to the third stained glass window. Is that the one of St. Paul? Yep, it is. I can see it from here. I love St. Paul's story because, for those of you who don't know, St. Paul was a rascal, an evildoer, full of sin and violence, retribution. His name was Saul then, and he persecuted religious people, and he persecuted the followers of Jesus Christ. He was present at the stoning, the assassination of Deacon Stephen, St. Stephen. One day he was riding that horse on his way to Damascus, and do you see that beam of light coming from the top down onto him? That beam of light, which I think is the beloved beam of light, it came down to him, struck him blind. He fell off the horse. He was on the ground, and he heard the voice of Christ saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Why are you kicking against the goad?" And Saul felt it as forgiveness. He changed his life. He was transformed. Metanoia. And they then named him Paul. And he became worthy of having a church like this named after him. That beam of light, in my mind, is the same beam of light that came down on Jesus when he was baptized. Baptized in the River Jordan by his cousin John the Baptist. And he got this beam of light coming down on him that said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased." I'm leading to my favorite mantra, y'all. I believe in my theology that that beam of light is inside every human being. Every human being has a beloved light inside of them. And from the first chapter of John's Gospel, it is the light that enlightens every human being. It is this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Everybody has that light in them. So now we get to my mantra for Lent. It came to me that this Lent I shouldn't give up something, but I should take something on. And that was to care for the beloved light in me and to care for the beloved light in absolutely every other human being, including the people who don't like me, including the people in whom God's light is heavily disguised. That is what Jesus is saying to us. I don't desire sacrifice. I desire mercy. And it was that energy of mercy pulsating through Jesus that healed people who touched him and who were touched by him. I got a direct message yesterday from the guy in Jackson, Mississippi, who was the chair of the search committee that called Hope and me to Jackson for me to be the dean of the cathedral there. He said, I was going to try to take the train to get over to New Orleans for your first Sunday, but I can't make it. But I want to remind you of a mantra. He didn't know I was preaching about mantras today. He said, we asked you whether or not you would be interested in coming to Jackson, and we wanted to know what your vision would be if you were accept a call from us. And without hesitation, you quoted John Westerhoff as saying, the best measure of a church's maturity and effectiveness is whether or not the lives of the people who don't go to that church are better because of the lives of the people who do. My friends, I've got a formula, and I'll stop. My formula is my mantra. If you and I will care for ourselves, show compassion to ourselves, be merciful to us, not shame ourselves, attack ourselves, blame ourselves, but care for ourselves and care for the beloved light energy that is in absolutely everybody else, then this whole town, this whole state, this whole country, this whole planet is going to say, have you all heard about those people at St. Paul's, New Orleans? They heal everybody they touch. And you don't have to be a member of their church. Because people's lives are improved even though they don't go there, because of the people who do go there. Because they believe in caring for the beloved light in everyone. Amen? Amen. Amen.